Hello, in this lesson we will learn how to find the center of rotation between a pre-image and an image that has been rotated. Okay? So here we have a square A, B, C, D. That's our pre-image. So that square is going to be rotated into A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, okay, into this square here. And we need to find what's the center of rotation between this pre-image and this image. So what we're going to do is we're going to join a vertex from the pre-image and a vertex from the image, but those two vertices, they have to be corresponding. When I say corresponding, it means we have to join either A with A prime, or B with B prime, or C with C prime, or D with D prime. We have to join one of those pair of vertices. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to join this example D and D prime first. Okay? So I'm going to take, I click here where it says line, right? I click here on D. Sorry, it's under point. Let me undo this. So you see we have to click here where it says line. And now I'm going to click here on D and D prime. Okay, good. So again, I joined two corresponding vertices between the pre-image and the image. Now after doing that, we need to find the perpendicular bisector to this segment DD prime. Remember, the perpendicular bisector is a line or segment that cuts another segment. In this case, it will cut DD prime in half with a 90-degree angle. Okay, so we're trying to find a line or segment that intersects DD prime in the middle with a 90-degree angle. That's the perpendicular bisector. So how do we find the perpendicular bisector to D prime, to the segment D prime? We use our compass, okay? So we click here, move tool, we have a compass here. Now we want to position this end of the compass on D, okay? And we have to make sure that the opening of the compass is larger than the middle of larger than the midpoint between D and D prime. In other words, let's say that the midpoint of D and D prime is around here. The compass cannot be like smaller than that. The opening has to be larger than the middle between D and D prime. Okay, so it cannot be like this or like that. It has to be larger than the middle, but not too large. We cannot pass the D prime point, right? We are gonna make something in between the middle and D prime, some point in between those two. So let's put it here, for example, there. Okay. So again, the opening of the compass has to be larger than the middle between D and D prime. Okay, and the midpoint here has to pass that midpoint. Okay, so now we're gonna draw a semicircle. Okay, so we do this. You see, I draw a semicircle. Now we're gonna take the same compass without changing the opening. Very important, you don't change the opening of the compass, and you place it on D prime, and you do exactly the same. You draw a semicircle. Okay. Now that you have that, the segment that joins these two intersection points of the two semicircles, that's gonna be your perpendicular bisector to D prime. Okay, so let me click the line tool. We're gonna do this. You see, we're gonna join these two intersection points of the semicircles, this intersection point and this intersection point. And I'm gonna make it a little bit larger, that line. Okay, just like that. Okay, so this is the perpendicular bisector to D prime segment, to the segment D prime. Okay, So again, very important. The first step is to find the perpendicular bisector to the first segment that we chose, which is by joining two corresponding points between the pre-image and the image. You join two corresponding points between the pre-image and the image, and then you find the perpendicular bisector to that segment. Okay, so that's the first step, to find the center of rotation. Now that we found the perpendicular bisector to d prime, I'm gonna select here my let me see here, my drawing tools, and I click eraser, and I erase these semicircles. Okay, and to erase this segment between D and D prime, I click in the move tool, I select that, and I hit delete. I click delete. Okay, so that's how we get rid of that segment. Now I'm gonna click here, hit delete as well, click here, hit delete to get rid of everything. So the only thing that remains is the perpendicular bisector to the segment D prime. Okay, now we have to find a second perpendicular bisector, and again, to do that I need to choose two corresponding points. So I'm gonna choose C and C prime. Again, I take my line tool, click my line tool, I'm gonna select different colors. I click here to select another color, this one here. So I click here and I click here. That's my second segment, and I need to find the perpendicular bisector to the segment C prime now. I could use the compass, right? I can take the compass, put it here, make my drawing, put it here, make my second drawing, right? And then join these 2 points. And I realize that the joining of these 2 points is actually the y-axis. You see that? The y-axis passes through those intersections between the 2 semicircles. Okay? So the second perpendicular bisector, or the perpendicular bisector to my segment C prime, is actually the y-axis. So let me erase those, since I already found that the y-axis is the perpendicular bisector to the segment C prime. Now again, I click my drawing tools, my eraser, click here, and click this move tool, click here and delete that. Okay, so and click this one, delete that, click this one, delete that. So my second perpendicular bisector that I'm using is this one, right? The y-axis. So to find the center of rotation, all you have to do is to find the intersection of the 2 perpendicular bisectors that you discover in this process. So this first perpendicular bisector and this second perpendicular bisector, they both intersect at a point 0, 0. So that will be my center of rotation. Okay, so the center of rotation is the intersections of 2 perpendicular bisectors, and these perpendicular bisectors cut in half the union, or the segments between 2 corresponding points of the pre-image and the image, right? In this case, D at D prime. This was the perpendicular bisector to D and D prime, and this y-axis is the perpendicular bisector to C and C prime. All right, so that's the process. Thank you very much for the attention.